Consider sitting down at your computer one ordinary morning. You open your browser, check your email, maybe do a bit of online banking. Everything looks the same, everything feels normal. But behind the scenes, something has already changed. And tens of millions of people have no idea it happened. On October 14th, 2025, a Tuesday morning that passed without ceremony, Microsoft pulled the plug on Windows 10. Not a shutdown. Something far quieter and in many ways far more dangerous. They simply stopped protecting it. No more security patches, no more bug fixes. No more help if something goes wrong. After a decade of being the most widely used operating system on the planet, Windows 10 was abandoned. Left running, left exposed. Left to face a world of hackers, ransomware, and cybercriminals entirely on its own. Now Microsoft threw a lifeline, a one-year extension called the Extended Security Update Program. For $30, or sometimes for free, you could buy yourself one more year of protection. Until October 13th, 2026. That deadline is now in view. And when it arrives, it is the end of everything. No more patches. No more extensions for ordinary home users. No second chances. The machine in your living room, the one running Windows 10, will be, in Microsoft's own terms, unsupported. Permanently. There are, according to the Public Interest Research Group, around 400 million PCs still running Windows 10. 400 million machines. And one of the researchers tracking what happens to those computers when they are thrown away described it as potentially the single biggest jump in junked computers ever seen. Later in this video, I am going to tell you about the real human cost of that number, and about one specific group of people who are going to be hit harder than almost anyone else. But first, we need to explain exactly what is happening, why Microsoft made the choices it did, and what your options actually are. Let us deal with the numbers first, because they are staggering. According to market research firm Canalys, up to 240 million Windows 10 users could be directly targeted by actively exploited software vulnerabilities the moment Microsoft stops issuing patches. Not theoretical vulnerabilities, not hypothetical risks, actively exploited ones, meaning cybercriminals are using them right now on systems just like yours, and the only thing standing between you and an attack is a security update. An update that, after October 13th, 2026, will never come. Market analysis firm Omdia estimated that there are 550 million Windows 10 machines inside corporations globally. Half of those, Omdia said, cannot upgrade to Windows 11. Cannot. The hardware simply does not qualify. To put that in perspective, as of late September 2025, StatCounter data showed that around 40% of all Windows devices worldwide were still running Windows 10. On the single most used operating system on Earth, 4 in 10 machines are running software that is now, or very soon will be, permanently out of support. And then there is the environmental dimension, which nobody in mainstream media is covering with the seriousness it deserves. PIRG, the Public Interest Research Group, has modeled what happens when hundreds of millions of perfectly functional computers get thrown away because their software has been made obsolete. Their estimate, 1.6 billion pounds of additional electronic waste. That is not a rounding error. That is not an exaggeration. That is a real projection based on device weights and replacement rates. 1.6 billion pounds. We will come back to what that means for ordinary families in a moment, and specifically for people on fixed incomes who bought their last computer expecting it to last. But first, it is time to understand how we got here. Because this situation did not happen by accident. Windows 10 launched on July 29, 2015. At the time, Microsoft made an extraordinary promise. The upgrade was free, not free for a year. Not free with a subscription, free permanently. Come from Windows 7, come from Windows 8, and Windows 10 is yours. It worked. Within 2 years, Windows 10 was running on hundreds of millions of devices. By its peak, it powered over 1 billion machines. It became, by almost any measure, Microsoft's most successful operating system since Windows XP. Microsoft follows what it calls a 10-year lifecycle policy for its operating systems. You get roughly a decade of updates, security patches, and support. Then the company moves on. By that logic, ending support for Windows 10 in October 2025, a full decade after launch, was entirely predictable. It was on the calendar from day one. The problem was not the timeline. The problem was the door they built to replace it. Windows 11 launched in October 2021. On paper, it was a free upgrade, exactly like Windows 10 had been. But there was a catch. A significant one. To run Windows 11, your computer needed something called a Trusted Platform Module, version 2.0. TPM 2.0 is a small security chip built into the motherboard of a PC. It handles encryption, secure boot processes, and hardware-level identity protection. Here is the problem. Many otherwise capable computers, machines running perfectly well, capable of browsing, streaming, handling documents, managing spreadsheets, were built before TPM 2.0 became standard. The chip simply was not there. And Microsoft, under significant public pressure, reaffirmed in a corporate blog post that TPM 2.0 was, in their words, a non-negotiable standard for the future of Windows. They would not back down. The result was a wall. A hardware wall that blocked the upgrade path for tens of millions of users who had no technical reason to replace their machines, only a bureaucratic one. Yusuf Mehdi, Microsoft's Executive Vice President and Consumer Chief Marketing Officer, framed the situation diplomatically. He wrote that 2025 was, in his words, the year of the Windows 11 PC refresh. He acknowledged that transitions to new PCs take careful planning. He was not wrong. But careful planning costs money, and not everyone has it. The corporate decision was made. The hardware gate was locked. The countdown timer started ticking. And the question of who gets left behind and how hard they land is what we need to examine next. The turning point in this story is not the end of support date itself. That was always coming. The turning point is the decision Microsoft made about who gets to keep receiving protection after the deadline, and what they have to pay for it. For the first time in its history, Microsoft extended the Extended Security Update Program, ESU, to ordinary consumers. Previously, ESU was reserved for businesses and government agencies, large organizations running mission-critical systems that could not upgrade on short notice. They paid for extra time and they got it. Opening ESU to home users was, in isolation, a reasonable move. The problem is the structure of the program. For consumers, ESU costs $30. One payment, 1 year of critical security patches running through October 13th, 2026. And then nothing. There is no year 2 for home users. There is no option to pay again and extend. When October 2026 arrives, the consumer ESU program ends completely. Microsoft has confirmed this. There is no further extension available to people using Windows 10 at home. Businesses face a different structure. Enterprise customers can purchase 3 years of extended updates, running potentially through 2028, but the pricing escalates sharply each year. The first year costs $61 per device. The second year doubles to $122. The third year doubles again to $244 per machine. For a company running thousands of devices, these numbers become eye-watering very quickly. There is one important wrinkle worth noting. In the European Economic Area, the EU and associated countries, consumer advocates pushed back hard on the requirement to link a Microsoft account or pay cash to access ESU. A European consumer group called Euroconsumers raised formal objections. Microsoft responded by granting EEA users free access to ESU without the account requirement. It was a quiet concession that received almost no attention outside specialist technology media. The broader implication is stark. Microsoft drew a hard line. Consumer users in most of the world get 1 extra year. After that, you are on your own. And what comes next, what that actually means for real people, is the part of this story that should concern everyone watching. Here is where the story gets bigger than a software deadline. This is where a corporate lifecycle decision collides with cybersecurity reality, digital inequality, and a global environmental crisis happening in slow motion. On the security front, the risk is not theoretical. Canalys research made a specific warning. Up to 240 million Windows 10 users could be targeted by half a dozen actively exploited vulnerabilities once patches stop arriving. We know what happens to unpatched, widely used operating systems. We have seen it before. In 2017, when Microsoft ended extended support for Windows XP, a system that was like Windows 10, still running on hundreds of millions of machines, the WannaCry ransomware attack spread to more than 200,000 computers in 150 countries. It encrypted files, locked screens, and demanded payment in Bitcoin. The British National Health Service was crippled, thousands of appointments were cancelled, ambulances were diverted. A hospital system that had relied on outdated software became a target, and real patients paid the price. Nobody is saying the exact same thing will happen to Windows 10 users after October 2026. But the structural conditions are identical: a widely used operating system, an abrupt end to security support, hundreds of millions of machines suddenly running software that will never receive another patch. The ransomware gangs and state-sponsored hackers who monitor these moments for opportunity will not miss it. On the environmental front, the escalation is equally serious. According to the United Nations and the International Telecommunication Union, the world generated 62 million tons of electronic waste in 2022. Only about 22% of that was formally collected and recycled. The rest went into landfills, informal processing in countries with loose environmental regulation, or simply disappeared. Adding a wave of hundreds of millions of discarded PCs to that stream, machines that worked perfectly well 6 months before they were thrown away, is not a footnote. It is a crisis layered on top of a crisis. PIRG has been explicit in calling Microsoft's choices the potential driver of the single largest jump in junked computers ever. Their campaign, called Designed to Last, specifically targets the hardware requirements that Microsoft imposed on Windows 11, requirements they argue were arbitrary rather than technically necessary for most real-world uses. And right now, today, with October 2026 approaching, millions of users are making decisions. Upgrade, replace, pay $30, try Linux, or do nothing and hope. Most of them are doing it without complete information. And the group that is going to feel this hardest is the one we need to talk about next. Think about the people watching this video right now. Not developers, not IT managers, not tech journalists. The people who bought a computer 5 or 6 years ago because they needed to stay connected. They bank online, they video call their grandchildren, they file their taxes, they manage their prescriptions, they watch the news, they bought that machine expecting it to last. Nobody told them at the point of purchase that an operating system update in 2021, an update they were not required to take and may never have known about, would one day make their computer a security liability. Nobody explained that a chip called a TPM 2.0 would become the difference between a supported machine and an unsupported one. A September 2025 survey conducted by which, the UK's leading independent consumer advocacy organization, found that 25% of UK Windows 10 users intended to simply carry on after the deadline without upgrading. 1 in 4 people, not out of stubbornness, not out of carelessness, but because the options available to them, spend money on a new PC, pay $30 for a temporary patch hedge program, or navigate a technical migration they do not fully understand, all feel impossible. In the United Kingdom alone, which estimated that 21 million users were facing this choice. 21 million people in one country, navigating a decision that Microsoft's corporate communications team has dressed up in language about modernization and refreshes and AI-powered experiences. The reality for many of those 21 million people is straightforward. They are retired. They are on fixed incomes. Their computer works fine. They cannot afford to replace it. They do not know what Linux is. They have never heard of Ubuntu or Mint or any of the alternatives that technology advocates promote as free solutions. Their son or daughter set up their Windows computer for them years ago, and that is the world they know. For these users, October 13th, 2026 is not a software deadline. It is the moment their digital life becomes a target, their banking details, their saved passwords, their email, their medical records stored in documents on the desktop, all of it sitting on a machine that no security researcher at Microsoft will ever look at again. There is a phrase that gets used in cybersecurity circles, a soft target. It refers to a system that attackers know is undefended. Unpatched Windows machines have historically been among the softest targets available. The people using those machines are often the least equipped to recognize an attack, least likely to have backup systems, and most likely to comply with the ASMR's instructions when something goes wrong. This is the human cost that the press releases do not mention, not a statistic, not a life cycle policy. People, sitting at desks in spare bedrooms and kitchen tables, watching the clock tick toward a deadline they may not even know exists. Let us be fair to Microsoft, because fairness matters here. The company gave 10 years of support to Windows 10. By the standards of the industry, that is not a short run. Many software products do not come close to that lifespan. The 10-year lifecycle policy exists and has existed for years. Anyone paying attention knew this was coming. The TPM 2.0 requirement, as frustrating as it is in practice, has a real technical justification. Hardware-based security features genuinely do protect users more effectively than software-based alternatives. BitLocker encryption, Windows Hello authentication, secure boot, these are not marketing words. They are real protections that rely on hardware that older machines simply do not have. Microsoft is not wrong that a more secure computing environment requires newer foundations. The Consumer ECU program itself represents a genuine concession. For the first time, Microsoft extended it beyond enterprise customers to include ordinary home users. You can enroll for free if you sync your PC settings to a Microsoft account, redeem Microsoft Rewards points, or simply pay $30. That is not nothing. And Microsoft has maintained that Windows 11 remains a free upgrade for devices that qualify. The company has published compatibility tools and walked users through the process. But here is the honest counter-argument. The TPM 2.0 requirement blocked an enormous number of perfectly capable machines, not ancient computers. Machines from 2016, 2017, 2018, machines that run modern browsers, stream video, handle productivity software without complaint, were locked out of the upgrade path because of a security chip decision made at a time when manufacturers were not consistently including it. The users of those machines did nothing wrong. They bought a computer that worked. The goalpost moved. The ESSU Lifeline for consumers also ends completely in October 2026. There is no path forward after that for home users who cannot or will not upgrade. Business customers can buy 3 more years. Individual people cannot. That asymmetry, where large organizations gets more time and more options than individual users, is worth questioning. And the environmental argument is compelling in a way that transcends political affiliation. Throwing away a working computer is not a neutral act. The energy, rare earth metals, and manufacturing processes that went into building that machine are not recovered when it hits a landfill. Every working PC that gets discarded because of a software policy decision is a real cost, paid not by Microsoft but by the environment. The truth is that both things can be true simultaneously. Microsoft has followed its lifecycle policies, and the consequences of those policies fall disproportionately on people who are least able to adapt to them. We open this video with a person sitting down at their computer, everything looking normal, everything feeling fine, and a deadline counting down that they do not know exists. That person is real. There are hundreds of millions of them, and whether they are in Cincinnati or Birmingham, in Sydney or Toronto, they are all facing the same choice, even if most of them do not yet know they are facing it at all. October 13th, 2026 is the final deadline, not just for Windows 10 support, not just for the Extended Security Update program, for the entire chapter of computing that began when that operating system launched in 2015. After that date, there is no patch, no extension, no safety net, not for home users. If you are watching this on a Windows 10 machine right now, the most important thing you can do is know where you stand. Check whether your PC qualifies for a free Windows 11 upgrade. If it does, run it. If it does not, understand your options, the ESU program, the alternatives, and yes, Linux, which has become far more accessible than most Windows users realize. If you are watching this on a Windows 10 machine right now, the most important thing you can do is know where you stand. Check whether your PC qualifies for a free Windows 11 upgrade. If it does, run it. If it does not, understand your options, the ESU program, the alternatives, and the paths that others in exactly your situation are already taking. The story does not end here. October 2026 is not a conclusion. It is where the consequences begin. And we will be covering every step of what comes next, so if you are not subscribed, now is the time. Because the people who are going to need this information most are the ones who have no idea it is coming. If what you heard in this video matters to you, if you know someone sitting at a Windows 10 machine who has no idea what is coming, subscribe to this channel, not for more content in general, because this story is not finished. October 2026 is not an ending. It is where the consequences begin.